complete lie. The trouble is, a lot of people that want to get rich are trying to live a lifestyle like this. Why? Because many would rather look rich than actually be rich. So if you're someone that just wants to show off a flashy lifestyle, then this video isn't for you. Turn it off and go and spend the next 30 years spending everything you have until you get to 50 years old and have nothing to show for it. Don't get me wrong, I did experience all the things I mentioned, however, not until I had at least $1 million in liquid assets. So when I say you have little to no chance of becoming a millionaire at the same time as living a lavish lifestyle, I'm not trying to crush your dreams. Quite the opposite. I want you to do all the hard work now so you can enjoy all the benefits of wealth later on. The biggest being the freedom to do whatever you want, whenever you want. So if you want to become rich, then listen up, because if I was in your position, I'd avoid buying these 7 things. Number 1, a house. A lot of people aren't going to agree with this one, but buying a house for yourself, if you're serious about getting extremely rich, is one of the worst moves you can make. I didn't always think this way, but in recent years I've changed my mind, mostly due to a conversation with my son Curtis. One day he revealed to me that he'd saved up around $70,000 from working a couple of years as a freelance videographer, and I suggested he used it as a deposit on a house and start paying off a mortgage. Now before I continue, I still stand by this advice if you're just looking for a slightly better than average level of wealth, but now it doesn't apply to those that want to become truly rich. Curtis was and still is very against the idea of buying a house for himself. At the time he said to me, "It's taken me years to save up this money. Why would I lock it up in a house rather than reinvest it into building my business, which has already made me a decent amount of money?" I took a moment to think, and I realized he was completely right. Buying a house for himself would lock up all the money he'd worked so hard to earn, meaning he couldn't leverage it to make more, and he'd have to start from ground zero again. Let me clear something up though. I'm only talking about buying a personal property to live in. Buying a rental property or house hacking by renting out part of the property is a completely different thing and pretty smart. If you aren't doing any of these things, then renting is actually a better idea. Most people find this hard to get their heads around, as they just see it as money wasted every month. But the return Curtis could be getting on the deposit money that would have been locked away is far more valuable. I know this is the complete opposite from what a lot of older people will tell you. However, what most don't consider is back in our day, it was much easier to buy a property as it required far less money down. Getting a mortgage is kind of like a locked savings account, so it's only a good idea for people that are just going to waste the money or leave it sitting in a bank account doing nothing. Luckily, Curtis reinvested the money back into his business, Tilbury Multimedia Limited, which currently generates about $1 million each year. So if you want to be rich, then you have to find a better investment vehicle than a house to live in. Number 2, the latest tech. Nobody really cares if you've got the latest iPhone or Apple Watch. Too many people upgrade to the latest tech items just because it looks cool or they think it makes them happier. I waited so long to upgrade from my iPhone 3G that the apps actually stopped working. I could normally deal with this without too many issues, but I was doing a lot of sales on eBay at the time and I needed to use the app, so there was a value to upgrading to a new model. However, instead of going out and buying the latest model, I decided to buy an iPhone 4, which is when my son had the latest iPhone 6S. He used to laugh at me using my older phone, but it did everything I needed it to do, and a newer model wouldn't have made me any happier, as I just see it as a business tool. The truth is, while owning a useful device like an iPhone or an Apple Watch can be beneficial, upgrading to the newest version for the sake of having the latest technology is not a wise financial decision if you're aiming to become truly rich. Instead, focus on purchasing items that can have a much bigger impact on your life and avoid being drawn in by the marketing hype. Number 3, investments you don't understand. Let's face it, too many people got into investing during the pandemic without really knowing what they were doing. They simply put their money into stocks and hoped the value would increase, which is a terrible idea. As Tai Lopez would put it, it's all about knowledge. Knowledge of stocks, the market, Wall Street, and the trading tools that you're using. That's why Moomoo is sponsoring this section of the video, as in my opinion, Moomoo is not just a trading platform for buying and selling stocks, but a tool that truly focuses on helping investors have a better experience, especially beginners. It was founded in Silicon Valley and has over 20 million users worldwide, allowing them to trade stocks straight from their iPad, laptop, or smartphone. I love that it provides me with free vital information about a company, such as how a company performed in the past, what it's projected to do in the future, and how Wall Street analysts rate it. You can also find more than 2,500 free investment courses ranging from beginner to advanced levels. If you join Moomoo today using the link in the description, you can receive up to 15 free stocks, each worth between $3,000 and $2,000. That's an amazing deal. These free stocks can help you start building your investment portfolio right away. Number 4, gifts for a partner. I'm not saying don't buy your partner gifts. I'm actually going one step further. I don't think you should have a partner at all when you're laying the building blocks for your empire. When I was in my teens and early 20s, I had a 4-week rule. If I knew a girl I met wasn't going to be the one, then a maximum I would allow was 4 weeks. I thought it was kind to allow them to move on, as it meant I didn't have to buy any expensive presents, as you aren't really socially expected to buy any gifts if you've only been seeing someone for a couple of weeks. According to the National Retail Federation, the average person will spend around $103 on Valentine's Day gifts per year. Now, I know that doesn't seem like a huge deal, but that's just one occasion. You will need to budget about $100 minimum for birthdays, Christmas, and anniversaries as well. Let's throw in the extra $15 a month for flowers, and you're looking at an extra $180. That's over $580, and we haven't even started on those little surprises throughout the year or times that call for bigger presents. We've all been there. I don't want to come across as being cheap, but the only person offers a year during their careers. Well, according to a national study of millionaires by Ramsey Solutions, just 31%. What's even more shocking is that in the same study, it was revealed that 79% of millionaires didn't receive any inheritance at all from their parents or other family members. So what is it that us secret millionaires know that most people don't? And how can you become one of us? Well, there are 4 important questions you need to ask yourself. Once you can answer yes to these questions, you're on the right path to becoming a millionaire, even on a low salary. Let me explain. So, when it comes to your finances, there are only 2 levers that you have control over: your income and your expenses. This looks pretty simple, right? Well, the facts say the opposite, as more than half of Americans earning over $100,000 a year are still living paycheck to paycheck, as their expenses are just too high. It doesn't really matter if you're on a high or low salary, you just need to be able to work these levers correctly in order to create positive cash flow. Let's play a little game. Do you think an 18-year-old that has a positive cash flow of $250 per month will retire a millionaire? Yes, he'll actually be worth around $1.1 million. How about a 25-year-old with a positive cash flow of $500 a month? Yep, they would be worth even more at a whopping $1.3 million. Okay, here's the last one. A 50-year-old with a positive cash flow of $3,000 per month. Actually, no, they'd get very close, but they'll only make it to about $950,000. This shows why it's so important to start thinking about this stuff while you're young. These calculations were based on 3 different factors. 1, their positive cash flow is saved every month. 2, they get an average yearly return of 7% on their savings. Now, you won't get this from a savings account, but it is the average return of the S&P 500. We'll get into that later. And 3, they retire at 65 years old. So, what is the best lever to focus on to create positive cash flow? Well, let's first talk about your expenses. I know it's not sexy, but if you start using one of those money tracking apps, you'll probably be shocked at how many tiny payments are going out of your account each month. Just think about all those subscriptions you don't even use. Those alone may add up to over $30 a month. I'm not saying to cancel the stuff you actually use, just the things you don't really care about. One of the biggest financial burdens for most people is high interest debt, particularly credit card debt. It's crucial to eliminate this debt as soon as possible. Imagine if I told you you could invest and earn a return of 27% per year. You'd probably laugh at me, but credit card companies charge you this crazy interest rate year after year. So stop allowing them to drain your finances and start using credit cards to your advantage. Pay off your balance in full each and every month. Improve your credit score and earn points that can be redeemed for free flights. Most online gurus would stop there and not even talk about the other lever, but this one, this is my favourite. I've not always been the best at saving. I didn't go silly when I was younger, but I did have a pretty awesome life. I travelled the world, I learned to fly aeroplanes, raced cars, and provided a great life for my family. I can do this because I have a talent for effectively leveraging the income lever. I highly recommend that you also spend more time using this lever. Unlike counting the pennies, the potential to earn money is unlimited. Question 2. Do you split your income strategically? Did you know that a surprising 49% of people earning more than $100,000 a year have no money left at the end of each month? The truth is, building wealth has a huge component that most people are completely unaware of, and that's the income split strategy. This is how I suggest you split your main income source. For most people, this will be the money you earn from your job. Now, ideally, you want to be spending 50% on your basic needs. These are the things that are essential for your survival. And no, I don't mean your Netflix subscription. These expenses include housing, utilities, food, transportation, and healthcare. Obviously, these do depend on your personal circumstances. However, it's important to be very honest with this, as the only person you'll be cheating is yourself. Next, you want to be spending 30% on your wants. This includes things like eating out, getting the latest video games, and going to events with your friends. This is the category that most people don't limit, and this is a huge mistake. Even though I earn millions every single year, I still limit the percentage I spend on the stuff I want. I know that if I want more, then I need to make more and not use a higher percentage of my income on these things. That's because the most important part is the last 20%. This should be invested. I've heard others use the word save, but I have a real problem with that. Too many people save money to buy something like the latest iPhone or a vacation away with their friends. This isn't what this 20% is for. Investing is very different from saving because the goal is to buy assets that go up in value or generate passive income, or ideally both. This can include investing in skill development, stocks and shares, timepieces, and real estate. Using this method, it's very possible to turn a small salary into millions, but it can be incredibly slow. We're talking decades. That's why I think you should take things one step further and build an additional income stream by starting a side hustle. Starting a side hustle is powerful because once you have the right income split, you can invest all the excess money. It's like pouring gasoline on a fire. It speeds everything up. If you invest this extra side hustle income and get an average annual return of 10%, then each dollar you earn now will be worth $4.45 in 15 years. It's truly the key to supercharging your earnings. So question 3, do you have a side hustle? But Mark, why should I have to start a side hustle when I already work a full-time job? My boss should just pay me more. Well, if you're earning a low salary, there are only a few reasons why this is the case. The first could be your job isn't perceived as valuable, and the second is who sold over $5 billion worth of cars to the rich and famous, making him Britain's top supercar dealer.
I wasn't learning at school. I was called a dunce. Couldn't read. It was always my desire and my dream to be the most famous and the best at what I do, and that's exactly what we are today. This complex cost 10 million. The lighting system was 300,000. The lift was 275,000. This building's made with handmade bricks. The £2 a brick. £2 a brick. We can at any one time carry stock from 40 million to 100 million. Money's not everything. Well, everywhere I go, money's everything. I founded this business on my own back. The business is worth well over 300 million today. As a mature man yourself and a successful person yourself, you're going to get doubters in life, and if you can't handle rejection, you're never going to make it in life.
This is the story of how a young man went from nothing to becoming a millionaire, only to lose it all and then go bigger and better than before, with his estimated net worth now sitting at around $1 billion. Right, so today we're setting off to visit Tom Hartley. He sent me the address to his estate and I'm not really sure quite what to expect, but I am certainly very excited. I've always put my success down to passion, as I believe this is the key to pushing yourself past your limits in business and in life as well. So I'm really interested to see what Tom thinks. The next time you see me, I'll be sat down with the man himself. So did you ever feel different to the others at school?
I wasn't learning at school. I was called a dunce. I couldn't read. I wasn't interested. And I was told by a school teacher called Mrs. McDonald that I was going to struggle in my life. I'd start dodging school, and a friend of my father's who owned a taxi business He was taking me to the auctions, and I'd watch what was happening because I was interested in watching cars be sold and bought and how auctions worked. So the first deal I'd done, I was just before I was 12 years old.
So you sold your first car at 12 years old?
I bought and sold my first car at 12 years old. I bought it from a guy called Billy Barty. He had a new Range Rover coming, and it was £1,950. I also knew a relative of my father's who wanted to buy a new Range Rover, and you couldn't get them. I put the deal together. It's called supply and demand. And I earned £250, and it was a lot of money. £250 in 1971 was a lot of money. And that was the start of the journey. So some of the heritage here over the years I've enjoyed.
They're amazing, aren't they?
Yeah, you name anybody you want to name, they've all been in this office. There's no computers on here. It's a telephone, piece of paper and a pen. That's what I rely on. You know, everybody from Andrew Lloyd Webber to the Sultan of Brunei, Rod Stewart, Elton John.
Yeah.
They've all been here, they're all there.
So when you were a youngster, could you really see that you'd have all your family around you as well as these beautiful showrooms?
Yeah, I mean, I had a vision of that, and I'm living it now. I'm living my dream. My son Tom passed his driving test in a Ferrari, and they set up the full television station here and filmed it live.
Amazing.
From here.
Yeah.
Going away and coming back. He's 17-year-old. So
would you say the drive to be the best you could be is what pushed you forward?
Like everything in life, to be successful, you have to take risks. I broke a few rules at that age. You know, I drove on the road at 14.
So did you get stopped by the police at all?
Yeah, I'd been stopped. I was 14, I drove a Rolls Royce. Back in the 70s, guys, when you got stopped by the police, the routine check is nothing like it is today. You could give your name to be Peter Johnston, 17 Main Street. They took that name and address down, and they said they'd write to you, that was it. You never heard no more. Because I was in such a rush to get to where I wanted to get to in life and in business, with the ambition that I had and the dream that I had. I wanted to get there quickly, and I had to break some rules. I discovered a loophole in importing cars. To an extent, it was like a cartel in the business. I was importing at that time probably 10 or 15 cars per week. When I was importing cars in 1978, you got 4.5 Deutschmarks to £1. So the point I'm making, for you who can't calculate, I was able to buy cars from the factory, import them, and sell them to dealers in this country. It was just an unbelievable loophole I found at the age of 17, just before my 17th birthday. I was a self-made millionaire.
So it's classic territory. I recognise this Porsche. I had one of these back in the day from a Wales house. 1976 Carrera.
Yeah.
And this Ferrari here,
Yeah.
is this the most expensive car you've currently got on stock?
No, we've got a car downstairs which is 3 million. This is 1.6 million.
So when you'd made that first million, was it all plain sailing from there on?
It just went crash. My world was turned upside down. I didn't lose $1 million because I gambled it or I wasted it. I lost $1 million because there was a technicality brought out because of my success. The manufacturers, the giants, BMW, Mercedes and Porsche, got together on this young kid, 16-year-old. They fetched a law out that you can only fetch one car, one person, and we're talking about a lot of money on deposit here, a big part of the $1 million. Here is a young guy who's made $1 million and lost $1 million, and he's not 20 yet.
How did you feel when these car companies started ganging up on you?
I was overwhelmed because I was out of my control.
$1,000 cash in my bank account, and I had a net worth probably 3 times that. But it wasn't always this way. A little over 3 years before this, I was buried in what felt like crippling debt. Now I really understand if you're starting from zero or even in debt like I was, it can feel impossible to move forward. And I'm not here to tell you this is going to be easy, but with the money saving tips and strategies I'm going to be sharing with you today, it's certainly possible to get some money saved up. The only reason I can remember the exact amount was because at 22, I spent $100,000. Hold on with that, I'll tell you how I spent my 100K later in the video. Let's first talk about how I got into debt and how you can avoid making the same mistakes. I remember when I just turned 18, a friend of a friend agreed to sell me his car. I didn't have the money at the time, but he convinced me it was a good idea to take out a credit card and completely max it out. I didn't really understand how credit cards work because they never really covered that in school. but he told me if I fixed up the car a little bit, I'd be able to sell it for a profit and pay off the credit card within a month, and then I wouldn't be paying any interest. Now, being young and a little bit silly, it seemed like a no-brainer to me. A few days after buying the car, you guessed it, the engine blew up. I had been sold a faulty car and I was left with a large credit card bill that I had no way of paying back. Over time, this credit card bill started growing until I felt it absolutely crippled me. In that moment, I made a promise to myself that if something sounded too good to be true, then it probably was. I remember sitting back on this big old brown couch and wishing it would just swallow me up. My credit score was terrible, my future didn't look great, but I decided I wasn't going to let my life be ruled by one mistake. I wanted to pay off my debts and save lots of money, and you can unlock exactly how I did it just by clicking that thumbs up button. So first I started tracking all of my money. Every penny that went in and out of my bank account, I tracked. I thought of my bank account a bit like a ship with a hole in it, and it was slowly dragging me down. I needed to find the holes so that I could fix them and get my life back on track. Nowadays it's even easier to do this, as you can download a budget management app like Yolt or Mint. I'll leave some links in the description below. Trust me, if you take the time to do this, you will be amazed how much money you're losing from little expenses you don't really need. One that's a huge problem now is all the subscription services, you know, like your cell phone, Netflix, and even those mystery boxes we all sign up for. Now, we sign up for these things and then we never cancel them, and every month they leech off our bank accounts even if we don't use them. By tracking everything, it gives you a much better idea of your financial situation. Once you understand where your money's going, it's actually much easier to take control of it. With this information, I was able to take the next step and set some targets. Without a target, it's very, very hard to save any money, because as soon as something shiny and new comes along, you end up blowing all your money and having to restart from zero. A target gives you a direction and helps you to resist all those personalized ads on social media that are trying to separate you from your hard-earned cash. I first had a year-long vision, which was to be entirely debt-free by the end of the year. But I knew if I was going to achieve that, I needed to break it down into manageable steps. When I started working backwards from my vision and thinking how much I needed to save every month, every week, or even every day, everything seemed much more achievable. I knew that if I hit my savings targets every week, then I would achieve my vision. These are called process targets, and they're great as they allow you to take small steps towards a big vision. The only thing that could stop me now was myself. So I needed to set some rules. I fully committed to these rules, and I printed them out and I stuck them on my bathroom mirror. Every day I would read them so that I would stay on track. It made it a lot easier for me to make the right choices when I was tempted to give up. Rule number one was save first and live on what was left over. By making my targets more important than my lifestyle, it meant I never had that much money to waste, so I made the most of every penny. Rule number two was wait 24 hours before buying anything. Have you ever really got excited about buying something and then a few days later that feeling just fades away and you start to regret what you've bought? By waiting 24 hours to buy something, you're able to think about it with a much clearer mind. Just doing this has saved me so much money, especially when I nearly bought a jet ski. My friend had just bought one of these and was going out every weekend and having a great time. He gave me a go, and as you can imagine, I absolutely loved it, so I decided I'd buy one. However, I waited 24 hours and decided to just go out on my friends for the next 4 weekends. I had a great time, but then he decided to sell it. He said he was bored of it, and he would, to be honest, I'd enjoyed riding it, but I felt the same. So by waiting that 24 hours, it saved me a big impulse purchase I would have regretted. Rule number three was not to fall victim to peer pressure and lifestyle inflation. You know, it's so easy to increase your spending when you start earning a little bit more money because you want to impress your friends and your family. But if you can resist this, you'll be able to save a lot more. I actually still shop at the cheapest grocery stores because I know it's all the same stuff, just better value. The next step was to start paying off all my high interest debts. I had lots of different debts, some from friends and families and others from credit cards. And as bad as it may sound, I needed to prioritise the highest interest debt first, which was the credit cards, as they were actually costing me more money and also destroying my credit score. There was really no point having money in a savings account paying 1 to 2% interest if I was still paying down a loan that was charging me 20+%. By paying that off, that was like getting a 20% return on the stock market, which is pretty spectacular. So if you have debts and money in savings, then pay them down. That's what I would do. It's the best guarantee return you're ever likely to get. So I stopped using my credit cards and I set up automatic payments so that I wouldn't be late paying back any of my bills. The faster I could pay these debts off, the better, and then I could be using my credit cards responsibly to build my credit score. In order to do this, I had to master the next by people like you selling on Amazon. $53.7 billion. This little dot represents the share of the profits you would need to claim in order to become a millionaire. When you zoom out, it looks like a drop in the ocean, but is it actually that easy? Well, if you believe the majority of the online gurus, then you would think yes. They like to sell you the dream of escaping your 9 to 5 and living on a beach, watching the money roll in, all by starting something called Amazon FBA. I want to get to the bottom of this. Is it a legitimate way to make money, or are these gurus making money just by teaching it? Now, it's no secret that over 40,000 people generate over $1 million per year on the platform, but are they making any profit? More to the question, is this something anyone can do and your golden ticket to millionaire status? Or is it all just a pipe dream? That's exactly what I'm going to be uncovering in the first episode of The Secret World of Passive Income Millionaires. Hi guys, it's Mark. So recently I can't escape the phrase Amazon FBA. I'm a massive fan of YouTube, as you all know, and on nearly every video I watch an advert pops up saying it's the key to becoming a millionaire, and fast. So of course I was intrigued as I made my millions through running traditional businesses. The way I've always done it is to have warehousing, and I buy the stock in containers, bring it in from China or America or Europe, and we stack it out. And we're pretty much sold out at the moment. We're waiting for containers to come. The way Amazon FBA works is a little different. FBA stands for Fulfilled by Amazon, meaning instead of having warehouses like me, you can just ship all the items off to Amazon and they deal with all the storage, the packaging and the sending out of all your items. So on the surface it sounds pretty great, yeah? I mean, less worries, lots of customers, what's not to like? Maybe it's something you could do as a side hustle and maybe make a little bit of money. But is it a long-term business? I'm just not convinced. If you're doing Amazon FBA successfully, then I want to hear from you. I want you to persuade me that this is more than a side hustle.
Mark, I'll take you up on that offer. I'll show you how these online businesses are taking over and how they can be so sustainable. As you can see, we don't play around with stock.
Here are my concerns. Imagine them as bowling pins. In order for me to change my mind, they're all going to have to be knocked down. Number one is the startup costs. Can anyone really start this business, or do you need a huge amount of cash to buy in products and then test them out? Number two is oversaturation and competition. Can it really be profitable in 2020? On one hand, the marketplace is massive, but also millions of people are selling similar products on Amazon. Number three is actually finding a winning product that sells well. With lots of other people searching for the next best thing, it must be incredibly hard to actually strike gold and find that one product that makes you millions. Number four is the amount of money Amazon take. As they're sending out all the orders for you, I imagine they take a pretty big slice of the profits. I don't have this expense, so I'm really interested to know if this is a problem. Number five is picking bad products. My worst nightmare would be storing lots of products in Amazon's warehouse and not being able to sell the stock. As time goes on, I imagine the fees are going to really add up. Number six, now this really is the big one, lack of control. I've always been in control of everything from manufacturing all the way through to shipping the product to my customer's door. But as Amazon take all the control of the selling and shipping, I would be concerned about losing all the information about my customers. I wouldn't want Amazon to shut me down and have to build up all those customers all over again from scratch. Alright, so now all the bowling pins have been set. Jack, I'm on my way. Jack is a no BS young entrepreneur who has amassed nearly 100,000 followers on his TikTok account and 8,000 on Instagram, where he gives straight to the point business advice, as well as recently even carving his quote, "Stay loyal to your goals and they'll stay loyal to you," into his Porsche. So quite a character. So have you had it all repaired now then?
It's in there now.
Oh.
So I'm driving the 4x4 at the minute.
Jack, what's your age and what do you do?
So I'm 19 years old, or 19 years young, and I do Amazon FBA. It's a business that you can get into at a very entry level. You can, you don't need too much money for it, and the numbers you can build up with a lot of effort and determination are very impressive.
So what inspired someone of your age to get into this and be an entrepreneur?
I tried out full-time work. Personally, I didn't think it was for me. A lot of people, are better at it. For me, I don't fit the norm. People thoroughly believe that the way to get rich is to work, put money into a pension, and when you're 60, you've got £1 million. And I don't want that, and that's not the road I'm taking. If that's what people want, that's fine, but that's not the path I'm taking. I want it sooner, so I will get it sooner, if that makes sense, and it's possible.
So if I can be a bit cheeky, what are your numbers?
So first year we did around £150,000. This year, the last 12 months, we're pushing on nigh on £200,000.
So that's a working business, isn't it? That's good. So for someone watching this video, what do they need to invest into this to really get going?
I always recommend £1,500, which, as you know, is a very entry-level amount of money to start a business, especially a retail business. What that'll get you is good software that you need for Amazon selling. It will pay for your first amounts of stock. You don't need a certain amount of money for stock. You can start with £100 and you can make your money on that, or you can start with £1,000. It is just a case of ratios, and scaling it up. Just please think of it as an investment in yourself. Yeah, don't expect that money to come back very soon. It's not going to start paying you soon. It's a long-term game. But for long-term gain. And
at what point do you work out that you can quit your side, quit it as a side hustle and make it your main business? Where do you think that breakover point is?
I'd say 3 solid months. That's what I was so, I remember speaking to my dad and I said, "Dad, I'm going to quit. I had one good day. I think we did like £800 in profit. I was like, I'm going, I'm leaving, I'm leaving. No. He said, you need to speak, if you want to do that, he said, you need to make sure your business is going to support you. So I waited 3 months for 3 good months of sales, where it was, doing 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times what I'd earn at a job. And then I was like, okay, that's time. It's definitely not something that should be rushed into.
So I've always seen drop shipping and FBA really is just a stepping stone, just a starter type business. Can you persuade me otherwise?
I see massive longevity, not with what I'm doing now. What I find is this is the cash cow. So it's building up the cash for what I want to do, which is private label. You're building a story, you're providing top quality products where you can control the quality of the product, the packaging, the branding, the customer relation, with nice cards and appreciation, stuff like that, which is huge because what you've then got, if you've got an established brand on Amazon, you're not just getting money from sales, your brand is being featured on the most visited website on the planet. Bar Google, which they'd find it on anyway. Private label, you're creating a sellable asset, a long-term business that is gonna keep ticking over. If you boost it to the first page and you keep ads on it, that product is gonna make you money for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, however long you keep it there for.
And how do you go about finding your products? Because a lot of people will write to me and they say, how can I find that niche product? And how long does it take you as well?
It could take me 20 minutes. It could take me 15 minutes.
20 minutes,
5
that's
minutes.
impressive.
Yeah, or it could take me 2, 3, 4 months. Okay. It is totally a case of sitting down there, how my mentality is going towards it. I think, finding that key product is tough. However, they all have an expiration date. For sure. It's not, you will never ride off just one product. You need to keep on pushing and keep on finding more. But for me, it is a case of sitting down in my zone and I will not get off my desk until I find one. I'll be picking up the phone quite a lot. Dealing with a lot of rejection, how old are you? I'm 19, how old's your business? Well, just over a year. The second it's a no or the second it's showing that it's not happening, just phone down onto the next, really detach emotions from it. Yes, it's the constant contact, speaking to people and the networking as well. The networking's huge, like meeting people who know other people or companies, just getting in touch with them, going around, there's so many roundabouts, but it is about going over them and going around them and not being scared to do so. But it is hard work.
So obviously Amazon take quite a cut out of this from you. So is that a set percentage on every item you sell, or is that a variable percentage?
It varies a lot on size and weight as well. So something, for example, a pen, they're not going to charge you very high fees on. That's probably about the lowest band of fees. So it depends on the weight and the size and how much it's going to cost them to ship it and move it around.
Say you've sent a lot of product to Amazon and it's not selling. How do you handle that situation?
I've had two types of products, 2 products that have just been a loss. I've had to accept that they're just doing nothing. That was t-shirts, and there were they were called Juicy Lucy picture frames, basically. They didn't go well at all. They were not as anticipated, and it was a bit of a kick. You know, it's a lot of money to expect to lose. That's my instant, oh, it's not working, damn it. What I did was I put ads on them, which I don't usually do, which I kind of stay away from, because then when you start doing ads, it cuts your margins, and that would have been my profit. So it'd work out that actually I'm doing that, and I'm making no profit. But then I sat back and thought, that's amazing. How wonderful is that? Because at first I was beating myself up. Why did I do that? How did I get the product wrong? Then I'm like, hang on. I tried it out. It didn't work. Did I lose it? No. Did I get my money back? Yes.
And learn a lesson.
And learned a lesson and took lesson from that. So I think to myself, for me going forward, I don't see much.
I'm going to be sharing with you all the strategies that actually work for me, as well as lots of my mistakes, so hopefully you can do even better. This is the story of how I went from a small English town to the rolling hills of San Francisco and the bustling city of Shanghai, China, including all the challenges I faced along the way. Who knows, by watching this video to the end, it may open up a new pathway for you that you might want to walk down.
You'll also find out why a simple desk like this can mean so much to me.
If that sounds good, then give that like button a smash and strap in for the wild ride that is my life.
Let me take you back to 1985. That's the last time I walked out of those gates. I was 16 years old, I was tall, skinny, and I had ginger hair. And I was broke, unfortunately. But I knew I wanted to make my mark on the world, and there was no way I could do that sitting in lessons, learning about things I wasn't interested in. So I went out to seek my fortune.
But before we get there, let me take you back to my teen years. I was always looking to make money. I know it's a little cliche, but when I was a teen, my main side hustle was selling candy and cans of soda to all the other kids in the playground. On the weekend, I would also go fishing and catch hundreds of mackerel, which I sold around the neighbourhood. I remember knocking on every single door possible. I was offering a great deal, 10 fish for $1, but unfortunately no one wanted 10 fish. So I was forced to go back to the drawing board and restructure my business with a new strategy. I decided from now on I'll be selling 5 fish for $1, and I was shocked by the results. Everyone wanted some. Looking back now, these years were so important as I was practicing some of the most important life skills out there, sales and confidence. Without these skills, I don't think I'd have been able to achieve success in later life. So if you just take one thing from this video, then it should be to start honing your sales skills and being confident.
This brings me back to these school gates. When I left here, I had several paths that I could follow. I decided I wanted a 9-to-5 job. I needed to learn a skill that would set me up for life.
Going to work at 9 AM and finishing at 5 PM was the life that school had been drilling into me for years. So I really threw myself into it and actually lined up 5 different jobs because I was so keen to be successful. I had the choice between being a builder, an electrician, a refrigeration engineer, a shop assistant, or a carpenter's apprentice. It was a tough decision, but in the end, I decided on becoming a carpenter. The pay wasn't great at around $2 an hour, but I was learning a skill and I could see the potential for moving up in the company, and I really thought that this was my ticket to success. I really threw myself into my carpentry apprenticeship and I learned everything I could. I even won leadership awards, and I really felt like I was moving forward with my life. I finished my apprenticeship with honours from the college and thought, here we go. All the big jobs are coming my way. But unfortunately, my manager seemed to take a dislike to me. Maybe he started to feel a little bit threatened by my success and therefore decided to give me all the bad jobs. For months on end, he assigned me to making wooden trash cans in the back room. This gave me no ability to show off my skills that I'd learned and prevented me from working my way up the company to a higher paid job. I thought to myself, I hadn't really studied all this time to make wooden trash cans. Nowadays, it's a sort of repetitive job a robot would do. What was even worse is when I looked around the workshop, I saw many other people doing lots more interesting jobs.
So I asked to speak to the manager, and where we're filming this is the exact spot where we stood. I said I needed more of a challenge. I couldn't keep making these bins. And you know what he said to me? He said, you're making these bins today, you'll be making these bins tomorrow. We got a 5-year contract with Walmart. You're going to be making a lot of these bins.
Now that's when I realised I was completely powerless working a 9-to-5 job at the mercy of whoever was in charge. The pay was only just enough to cover my bills, which meant I couldn't just quit, but I was also unable to save any earning money. I was essentially trapped. So I got a Saturday job working in a radio control model shop. I also started a side hustle flipping cars, which basically consisted of finding underpriced cars, fixing them up and then selling them for a profit.
To this day, I still own this Ford Fiesta XR2 Mark I. It's a 1985 model, and the cars I was buying at that stage were costing me $200 to $300, and I was usually flipping them for I say $500 to $600. This little beauty's worth a little bit more than that now though.
As well as doing all of this, I was also teaching people to fly radio controlled helicopters on a Sunday. There was a huge demand at the time, and all Sunday I would be booked out as long as the weather was good. Having these multiple side hustles allowed me to finally build out some kind of emergency fund. This is so important as it gives you the freedom to take advantage of any opportunities that come your way without having to worry about paying your bills. There is a huge opportunity cost that comes from living paycheck to paycheck, as you're so focused on next month's wage that you end up going through life with your eyes half closed and passing up on many opportunities without even knowing it. One day at work, the boss asked if anyone wanted to help install this beautiful staircase at a customer's house. I jumped at the chance. It was one of the most impressive houses that I'd ever seen. It had everything. I'm talking marble floors, chandeliers, a private swimming pool and a garage full of beautiful sports cars. It was my dream house. I started daydreaming and adding up how many years it would take me to earn enough money to buy a place like this, and I got gradually more and more demoralised, as even with all my side hustles I realised I still would never have enough money. It was so close but just so far at the same time, and I felt there was really nothing more I could do to achieve it. I was absolutely exhausted, physically and mentally. I was working every hour of every day. While installing the staircase, I would often look out of the window and see the owner relaxing in the garden or going off to play golf, and I really couldn't understand how this guy managed to have the life that he wanted and go and have fun whenever he wished. So I had to ask him a few questions, and he told me all about how running his business gave him the ability to make money while he slept. This is when I first discovered passive income. I'd never thought this was really possible for me, as school had only ever taught me one way of making money, and that was working a normal job. This concept of making passive income was so alien to me, but it really got the wheels turning in my mind. If this was a normal guy and he was able to do all this, then I was pretty sure that I could do it too. I started thinking back to my school years and selling those fish. That was my first real experience of running a small business, and I'd loved every second of it, from sourcing to selling the product. I couldn't believe that I'd been suppressing this for years and trying to conform to what society wanted me to do. Nowadays, passive income has become a bit of a buzzword on the internet, and I don't completely agree with the term, as it can sound a little misleading. Kickstarting passive income is certainly not an easy thing to do, but the idea is that you can do something once, like setting up a business or investing some money, and then earn from it even when you're not working. Of course, this requires some maintenance, but in my opinion, it's a better way to make money than working a 9-to-5 job if you want to be successful when you're younger, as your time is limited and therefore your income is capped. So now I knew that passive income was the answer. I devised a plan of escape. To have the best chance of success, I knew it was important to create a business in an industry that I was both familiar with and also passionate about. And I was lucky, I had the perfect idea. The shop I was working in on Saturdays was a radio control model store. Over the years that I'd been working there, I spotted lots of things they could be doing differently and all the mistakes that they were making. I researched and found the perfect location for a store. I even came up with the perfect name, which was inspired by an old TV show I used to watch when I was younger, Model World. I could really see the potential with this shop and how it would eventually operate without me even having to be there, essentially creating passive income. It finally gave me some hope and direction while I was working my normal job, as I knew that it was now only a temporary situation. Unfortunately, not a lot of people believed in me. I came from a working class background and I had little to no qualifications, so no one thought I'd be able to break into the market, except for one of my friends, who I told my entire plan to. I couldn't wait to quit my job and get started, so I could prove everyone wrong. I just needed to get enough money together first. Within a few months, Model World shop was up and running. but it was nothing to do with me. My friend had stolen my idea and done it himself. I felt so betrayed and frustrated that I'd trusted him with all my plans. I even started thinking to myself that maybe being an entrepreneur wasn't actually right for me. I was stuck in my 9-to-5 job being ordered around by my manager with every bit of hope shattered. The worst part was watching my friend living my dream. I felt like a sprinter chained up in the starting blocks, unable to release all that energy. It was one of the worst feelings in my life. The whole future I built in my head started to come crashing down. Looking back, this was a great life lesson for me, although I didn't see it like that at the time. If you have a great idea, then it's best to operate in the shadows. Maybe tell parts of your plans to different people, but don't give the whole game away like I did. After this huge setback, I decided to pick myself up and keep working. I grinded as hard as I could and bought my first apartment to build up my credit score. I thought I was working hard before, but this was really the next level. I worked every hour under the sun as I wasn't going to let my financial situation leave me open to having my dreams taken away from me again. This just shows the path to passive income is by no means easy. There can be a lot of setbacks along the way, but if you stay focused, then opportunities will present themselves. As if by magic, one day I heard some great news that my friend wanted to sell Model World. I'd visited a few times and noticed that he wasn't giving it the attention it needed. It had huge potential, but his passions were not in the business. I knew I needed to buy the shop and get my dreams back on track. This was the opportunity that I'd been preparing myself for, and I wasn't going to let it slip through my fingers again. I had a little bit of money behind me, but it still wasn't going to be enough. Nowhere near enough. But I'd built up a good credit score, so I thought, I know what, I'll leverage the money I had and see if I can get a bank loan. He'd taken my great idea, he'd taken my name, but the one thing he couldn't take from me was my passion, and I knew that was the secret ingredient to making this business a great passive income generating machine. So I created the best business plan I could and got a meeting with the bank. I'd banked there since I was a kid and I had a good credit score, so I was hoping that everything would go smoothly.
Within 10 minutes, I'd been denied the loan. It was the worst interview of my life. I felt like I'd been kicked out of the bank. It was unreal. My head was down. I was walking back to my car. And do you know what? I really didn't know what to do. It was like being back at that house again. So close, yet so far. I had to pick myself up. And as luck would have it, the next building I stumbled on was this bank here. I hustled my way in and I got a meeting right there and then with the manager.
He actually said it was a very interesting idea and not only gave me the loan but promised to be one of my first customers. I have since asked him what made him take a chance on me, and he said he was always eager to help out the younger generation, and when he saw how passionate and hard working I was, he just couldn't say no. This is a perfect example of where preparation and resilience meets opportunity. You never know when your next stroke of luck is around the corner. And for me, it quite literally was just around the corner. So without any hesitation, I closed the deal on Model World, the rights to the name and all the products they had. It was finally mine. I knew the hard work was yet to come, but it was mine. The first day I opened the shop, I had a sleeping bag behind the counter because I knew if I didn't make enough money that day, I'd be sleeping there because I certainly didn't have enough gas to drive the car home. Luckily, the first day was a great success. All the selling and negotiation skills I'd learned when I was younger came in really useful. Without them, I wouldn't have been able to make my business profitable.
After 3 years, we'd turned over $1 million, and it was crazy. It was crazy times, but it was good fun times, and we had more challenges along the way. After 10 years, we had 3 shops and a warehouse stuffed full of gear, but we wanted to be number one, so we had plans to push on even more.
I was generating millions in passive income and I felt like I'd finally made it, but I didn't realise just how open I was to losing everything. When it seems to be going amazingly well, you can start to get a little complacent as it seems like nothing can stand in your way. This is really dangerous as you stop innovating and take your eye off the ball. I was just to get a 9-to-5 job, save your money, work until you're 65 and finally retire when you're too old to enjoy it. Luckily, one of the businessmen I looked up to explained it in a slightly different way. He said the word retirement should be replaced with the word freedom, because once you reach a tipping point when you have enough money to stop working, you have true freedom. Every day you can do exactly what you want, no questions asked. Maybe that's relaxing on a beach, sipping a pina colada, or building businesses that change the world like Elon Musk. When you have the ability to retire, it's entirely up to you how you spend your time. So on that note, today we're going to discuss the plan I use to reach my retirement goal in my late 20s, starting from $0. This may be a little extreme for some people, but that's just me. I'm either 100% in or I'm not in at all. Obviously you can take this plan at your own pace, and who knows, maybe you'll even beat me. We'll get into all of this right after you hit that like button for the LTube algorithm, as it really helps push this video to more people. Also make sure to subscribe if you want to grow your wealth. Phase 1 is all about your freedom figure. This is the target that you have to reach in order to have full control of your life. This is something you should know even if you've got $0 in the bank. If you don't know your freedom figure, then it's a bit like being blindfolded in a running race. You can't see where you're going, so you may end up putting all your efforts in going in the wrong direction, or even tripping up and falling flat on your face. The reality is there are 3 types of people in this world. There are doers, dreamers and drifters, otherwise known as the 3 Ds. Actually, thinking about it, when I was at school they gave me a cap with D on it. They must have known I was a doer. So let's start off with drifters. They go through life living paycheck to paycheck without any financial aims. They don't really see the point of saving or investing money, as retirement feels like it's not something a young person needs to be thinking about. Dreamers do have financial goals, but they don't have any plans in place to actually achieve them. So they will forever just stay dreams. And finally, doers. They have financial goals, but most importantly have a plan to reach them. And that's where your freedom figure comes in. This is a very individual thing, and it all depends on how much you want to pay yourself each year when you retire. There's actually a great way to figure this out, and it's called the times 25 rule. So let's firstly assume you want to make $50,000 per year without working. Secondly, we would need to multiply 50,000 by 25, which gives us $1.25 million. The idea is that you're able to withdraw 4% of this per year without ever running out of money, and you guessed it, 4% of $1.25 million is $50,000. $1.25 million? How am I ever going to get that in 7 years? This video's a lie! I know this may sound tough, especially if you're starting from $0, but it is possible. No one said it's going to be easy, but with the right approach, it can be done. I mean, if I can do it, then so can you. In the early stages of your retirement plan, the way you think about money is crucial. It's all about getting the right mindset in place. The key is to prioritize building wealth over cash flow. This is because building wealth is about locking your money away in assets that increase in value, whereas cash flow gives you more money flowing into your pocket. Now this may sound great, but it can lead to a variety of problems such as lifestyle inflation and sky-high taxes. Cash flow is extremely important, but more so later in life once you start to unwind. This is why whenever I made some extra cash when I was younger, I made sure to reinvest the majority of it. Of course, I get it, sometimes it can feel really nice to secure some profit and lock it away in your bank account. It can give you a false sense of security knowing you've got all your money sat in your account for whenever you need it. But the reality is you often don't need as much money as you think. Forming a habit of reinvesting your cash flow is absolutely essential when it comes to building wealth as fast as possible and hitting your freedom figure. Phase 2 is laying the foundations. This is kind of like building a house. You need to lay a solid foundation to ensure your house doesn't crumble at the first sign of an earthquake. Unfortunately, 70% of millennials now live paycheck to paycheck, which means they're building their lives on an unstable base, just like building a house on quicksand. If you find that unbelievable, then this is even more shocking. 40% of Americans with an income greater than $100,000 a year are still living paycheck to paycheck. This just goes to show how important laying the foundations are, and even though it may seem simple, many people are failing at this phase. There are 4 stages I considered when I was in this phase during my early 20s. The first stage is paying off high interest debt. It's crucial to pay this off before you even consider investing your money, as high interest debt is holding you back. But saying this, it is very important to understand the difference between good debt and bad debt. Good debt is anything low interest that makes you money. For example,
the mortgage on a rental property, or low interest finance on a laptop to build an online business. Bad debt is high interest debt that doesn't make you any money. For example, shopping for clothes on buy it now, pay later, credit card debt, or even a typical bank loan. All of this debt needs paying off as soon as possible. I was in quite a lot of debt when I was 18, and in order to get out of it, I used the debt avalanche method, which involved making the minimum payments on all my high interest debt. Then I used any extra money to pay off the debt with the highest interest rate first, which was my store credit card at 32%. Crazy, I know. Signing up for that was a huge mistake, which I've talked about in some of my past videos. I then worked my way through the bad debt with the lowest interest rate, which was my car loan at around 15% at the time. Within a year, I'd managed to get everything paid off. The big lesson here is you can't invest to build wealth when being weighed down by bad debt. Stage 2 is putting aside an emergency fund. This is essential for your foundations, because if you start investing without an emergency fund, you might find a few months down the line you get into a spot of bother with an unexpected expense and no cash to pay for it. You will then have to pull your investments out to cover the expense, and then you'll miss out on the potential profits. Stage 3 is building a great credit score. A credit score is a bit like your resume. It follows you around in life, is regularly updated, and it helps lenders decide whether you're a worthy borrower. Having a good credit score is especially important if you ever want to get a loan in the future. For example, to buy your dream house. You just never know when you're going to need it. I should have actually started building my credit score a lot sooner than I did, because it's so easy to get started. All you need to do as soon as you turn 18 is get yourself a credit card. Start putting a few little expenses on it like gas, and pay that baby off in full at the end of each and every month. This way you pay no interest and prove to the lenders that you're a reliable borrower. Stage 4 is reducing your tax liability. Every dollar you earn has hidden costs. Of all the expenses, however, taxes can sting the most and take the biggest bite out of your money. No one likes the tax man. The good news is that tax efficient accounts can minimize how much tax you have to pay and maximize your savings. In my early 20s, my income was really starting to get eaten up by taxes, so I started looking for the best ways to save as much as possible. I then discovered if I opened up a retirement account, then I could save money I hadn't paid tax on. This is known as a 401k in the USA and a SIP in the UK. Of course, I will eventually have to pay tax on this, but as I'll be older, I'll be in a much lower tax bracket because I'll be earning less, so hence I should save quite a lot of money. But I didn't stop there. I opened another account that allowed me to save money that I'd paid tax on, but in the future I wouldn't have to pay tax on my capital gains, or in other words, all the money that the money generated. This is called a Roth IRA in the USA and an ISA in the UK. I firmly believe that everyone should set up both of these accounts as soon as possible, as I know it really reduced my tax burden. So once you've built up these solid foundations, it's time to start expanding. Phase 3 is building multiple income streams. I like to think about it like this. Imagine Spider-Man is you, the platform is your life, and the Skittle is your everyday job. If you get fired, guess what's happening? Now imagine this, Spider-Man is you, the platform's your life, but now you have multiple income streams. The stock market could crash, you could lose your job, or your side hustle could fail, but your life is supported by your other income streams. This makes it very hard for someone or something to come along and strike you out. A secure job is nowhere near as common as it once was, with the average person now working 12 jobs in a lifetime. There isn't one perfect solution for everyone, but something that has worked for me over the years is to pick side hustles that take advantage of my existing skills, as I don't have to learn something completely new. This will often end up being something you're passionate about as you develop the skills without even knowing it. Sometimes we can lean towards what will pay the most, but when looking to build long-term wealth, sustainability is important. So when waking up every morning, being passionate about your line of work is a great idea. As Richard Branson once told me over lunch, there is no greater thing you can do with your life and your work than follow your passions in a way that serves the world and you. Well, that's actually one of his most famous quotes, but he did say something along those lines. It was about 20 years ago, but one thing I do remember all the details about was the fantastic spaghetti bolognese made for me.
There are many different side hustles you can start, such as affiliate marketing, e-commerce, becoming an influencer, drop shipping, and even good old-fashioned window cleaning, bin cleaning, driveway cleaning, photography. The list goes on. The main I'd say, this kind of thinking has led to schools giving out awards for just taking part. But I've got news for you. In life, you only get rewarded if you put in the hard work. And whether you like it or not, we're all in a massive competition. So if you aren't interested in playing, go and watch a Mr. Beast video instead. Age 18 to 24 years old. According to the survey of consumer finance conducted by the Federal Reserve, the average net worth of 18 to 24 year olds is approximately $28,707. However, this figure is heavily skewed upwards, as the top 10% hold 70% of the wealth and the top 50% hold 98%. In fact, the median net worth of 18 to 24 year olds is only about $8,216. For the purpose of this video, we'll define rich as having a net worth 20% higher than the average. Therefore, if you want to be considered rich in this age bracket, you need a net worth of $34,448 or more. This doesn't mean that you need to have this amount of money sitting in your bank account. Instead, it comes from adding up all of your assets and taking away your liabilities. So here are some targets I think you should hit if you're serious about reaching this figure. First, you should create an emergency fund. Life is full of unexpected surprises. I know in my late teens, my car engine exploded, which was a nightmare. That's why it's important to have 3 to 6 months worth of spending saved up in an emergency fund. This will give you a bit of peace of mind and a financial safety net in case you ever need it. Second, try to avoid bad debt. Of course, I understand student loans can sometimes be necessary if the job you're pursuing requires a degree, so this all depends on your individual circumstances. Third, get a credit card. A credit card can be a great tool for building your credit score and avoiding high interest rates, but it can also be a dangerous trap. Use it responsibly by paying off the balance in full each month. Fourth, invest in yourself. Your human capital is your greatest asset. Invest in yourself by developing your skills and knowledge. This will increase your earning potential, make you far more desirable in the workforce, and give you a better chance at success if you decide to start your own business. And fifth, learn about the stock market. The stock market can seem intimidating, but it's actually a great way to build wealth over time. Open a brokerage account and start learning about investing. Many brokerage firms offer free stocks to new customers. The best I've found is Moomoo, who are giving away 15 free stocks, each worth between $3,000 and $2,000. So take advantage of these offers to start building your portfolio. I'll leave some links down below where you can pick some up, depending on where you are in the world. So overall, I'd rate this a 3 out of 5 on the difficulty scale. At this point, it's all about setting a great foundation for your life. I honestly feel that great financial habits are made during this age bracket. If you haven't done these things yet, then it's not too late, but it can be harder to get back on track. 25 to 29 year olds. If we go back to the same study by the Federal Reserve, the average net worth of a 25 to 29 year old is $49,388, and the median is even further behind at $7,512. This median net worth is actually lower than in the last age bracket. This could be due to many early 20 year olds not understanding their finances and managing them correctly, causing the gap between the rich and the poor to grow. If you want to be considered rich between 25 and 29 years old, then you need to have a net worth of $59,265 or over by hitting the following milestones. First, save up 1 year's worth of your spending. This should be easy to access in the case of an emergency, but it doesn't have to all be in cash. My son Curtis likes to put some of his money into watches, as he can wear them when he wishes. These can easily be sold if he ever needs the cash. Second, if you have any student loans,
pay them off. In fact, if you ended up getting into any bad debt, then make sure this is all paid off. This will be a huge weight off your shoulders, as these loans just bleed you dry. Third, you should have a credit score of 750 or higher. A good credit score is important for getting approved for loans and credit cards with favourable terms. This is very easy to do over the course of about 3 years if you use your credit card correctly by paying your bills on time and keeping your credit utilisation low. Fourth, you need to start making good money. I don't mind how you do it. It could be from a high paid job, a side hustle or a business. I mean, nowadays it's so easy to set up a simple website and start making passive income online. Hosting are great and give you everything you need for under $3 per month. You can even get a free domain with their annual plans. I'll leave a link below with a 10% discount. Fifth, you should be investing 10 to 15% of your income. This could be in absolutely anything, such as stocks, real estate, watches, businesses, or dare I say it, crypto. You just have to pick the area you understand the most and run with it. Early on, don't try to be too diversified. While you're young, you can afford to take more risk. So find your specific area of interest and learn as much as you can about it. Sixth, you should be completely financially independent from your parents. I'm a big believer in staying at home for as long as you can, but you can only do this for so long. So overall, I'll rate this a 5 out of 5 on a difficulty scale. At this point, it's all about increasing your income and taking a few risks. This can be hard for a lot of people to do. They're either too shy to ask for a raise or start their own business, but this is the time to do it. The fatal error people make is they're focusing too much on saving and not enough on earning. I mean, you can save your way to being rich on a low wage, but you won't get there very fast. 30-year-olds. According to the study, the average net worth of 30-year-olds is $198,406 and the median is $45,315. This is when things really start ramping up. So if we use the 20% rule, then if you want to be rich, you should be aiming for a net worth of $238,087 or more. I know this sounds like quite a lot. However, if you can just focus on hitting these milestones, then it should take care of itself. First, save up 4 years worth of your spending. As I said before, this doesn't have to be all held in cash. To be honest, this would be a bit silly. You want it invested in liquid assets. Second, consider buying a house for yourself. Being a millionaire when you're younger is far better. Take it from someone who's experienced both. And no, I wasn't born into a rich family. Quite the opposite. The odds were stacked against me. I was a ginger, working class kid without a penny to his name. So if I can build wealth in a relatively short amount of time, then you can too. This isn't going to be one of those generic videos about investing in index funds and getting rich when you're old and grey. I'm going to be taking you through the actual moments in my life where I uncovered the truth behind building wealth from nothing. From the moment you step foot into school, they try to control your ambition. And one memory that stands out to me was sitting in a lecture theatre just like this one. The teacher asked us to write down our dream job, our dream car and our dream house. I was really excited, so I wrote down business owner, Ferrari and mansion. She then said life is going to be tough, so I'm going to break the hard news to you now. You're probably going to have none of those things, so be realistic and lower your expectations. I thought to myself, of course I will. I'll have all of those things, and I've carried that attitude for the whole of my life. If you allow the system to crush your hopes and dreams, you'll never be able to create wealth from nothing. Look, this isn't some fluffy mindset BS. If you can't even believe something is possible, then how on earth are you going to do the work required to become wealthy? Most people give in to the pressure of being realistic and end up joining the crowd, and then they discourage the next generation from following their hopes and dreams. But you can decide to break the cycle, just like me in that lecture theatre. So if you want to do this, then you firstly need to be very careful about who you listen to. I'm not just referring to those fake gurus on social media. I'm also talking about the people in your life who give their unsolicited advice. While your friends and parents may have good intentions, if they haven't built a large sum of wealth,
why would you listen to them when it comes to making money? Secondly, you need to learn to think from multiple angles when trying to solve problems. Most people will come across an obstacle that they've been told is impossible for them to conquer and give up at the first sign of trouble. The more you let these kinds of challenges beat you, the harder it is to break out of the herd, as you're cementing to yourself that you aren't good enough. Whenever I come across a challenge, I think of at least 10 different solutions and then decide on the best way forward. If one doesn't work, then I just try the next one, and so on until I'm successful. Thirdly, you need to step outside your comfort zone. Look, if Harry Potter stayed in the cupboard under the stairs, then he would never have defeated Voldemort. Sorry for the spoilers, but it's so true. Putting yourself in challenging situations helps you grow and improve more than anything else I've ever experienced.
When I first joined the workforce as a carpenter's apprentice, I was so excited. It was the job I really wanted to do. But unfortunately, the manager took a bit of a dislike to me and he bullied me practically every day, giving me all the rubbish jobs. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't take it anymore. I came home that night, sat on my couch, and I looked around the room and thought to myself, what have I got to lose? I've got no child or wife to look after. I'm 20 years old. I've got to make this decision. Sure, I'm scared of quitting a job. Of course you're scared. But I knew that was the best thing for me. So I quit the very next day.
If you're young and have few responsibilities, it's a clear choice to take more risk to increase your income. Of course, I'm not suggesting that you should go and invest all your money in crypto. The risks should be calculated. Looking back, I didn't realise at the time, but the biggest risk in my life would have been staying at that dead-end job. For me, increasing my income meant starting my own business. However, if this isn't for you, you could always start a side hustle or upgrade your job every couple of years. Studies have actually found that you're more likely to build wealth faster by job hopping rather than staying loyal to one company. However, if your goal is to build wealth as fast as possible and you decide to pick the employee route, then you need to choose a career that isn't dependent on how many hours you work, but on the results you achieve.
After lots of hard work and many sleepless nights, I managed to open my model shop. It was a huge success. I was reinvesting all of my money in the business to help it grow, that I didn't have time to think about investing. One day I decided to take on a work experience lad for 2 weeks, and on the first day all he kept banging on about was stocks and shares, and I thought, what does a 14-year-old know about stocks and shares? Anyway, he mentioned this one particular stock that he said was going to go to the moon. He said, I've got £1,000 and I'm going to pile it all in because I'm so confident. And I thought, well, if he's that confident, I think